following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Golenbock University. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the star of the show, the man himself, Peter Golenbock. How are you, Peter?
I'm fine, thank you, Ralphie. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, I was just saying to Peter how spring has sprung in Northern California, and I'm thinking about every day's the same in Florida, so I don't have to ask you. It's beautiful weather.
Yeah, beautiful every day.
Yeah.
Paradise.
I had a question come up on a different podcast about why Florida and Arizona teams don't train in their own complex or play their exhibition games in their own complex.
They're not allowed to.
Why is that?
The rule is that they're just not allowed to. I don't know why. I don't know. It's the darndest thing. It's a very good question. I mean, we are in St. Petersburg, and they train in Port Charlotte, which is a good hour and a half to hour 45-minute drive south. It's a long way.
Where does Miami train? Do they train close to where they are, or do they have a long
Miami
drive
trains the Marlins. I can't tell you for sure. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they train in southern Florida, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, but it's what's an interesting thing. I mean, the Tampa Bay Rays used to train at Al Lang. They used to play the spring training games at Al Lang, come to think of it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think what it was that if there was a major league team in your town, you couldn't have a minor league team. That's what it was, more than the other. I mean, we used to have the St. Petersburg Rays. Before that, we had the St. Petersburg Cardinals, the St. Petersburg Yankees. But once the Rays moved to St. Petersburg to become a major league team, we were told that the minor league games had to be played somewhere else. That's what it was. It had nothing to do with spring training. What the Rays wanted to do was to have a better facility. In other words, Al Lang, they had, I think one practice.
It was old.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ruth and Gehrig and DiMaggio practiced at Huggins Field, and they played their games at Al Lang Stadium. But if you go down to Port Charlotte, there are
Huggins for a long time.
Yeah.
Before Casey Stengel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was
and
Huggins
Al Lang,
Field.
for those of you who don't know out there, was a baseball writer with
he was
Long
the mayor.
Island Star.
He was the mayor. No, Al Lang was the mayor of St. Petersburg. And he was the one. He was the one in, I think, 1925, who managed to lure, I believe it was the Yankees, to St. Petersburg. And everybody was so thrilled at what he did. They named the stadium after him.
Right.
Al Lang Stadium. He was not a reporter. He was our mayor.
Wasn't there a reporter that was high up in his name was Lang, I thought.
Fred Lieb. There was a Fred Lieb, but not Lang. Oh, yes, Jack Lang. Yes, Jack Lang was in the 50s and 60s. He was for one of the New York newspapers. Yeah. I knew Jack.
Long Island Press, if I'm not mistaken, and it was his job to call the Hall of Famers, the new Hall of Famers.
Oh, yes, it was. He was the president of the Newspaper Writers Group.
Association,
right. That's right. But Al Lang was 1925. Jack Lang was 1950, 60, 70.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Peter, we got a big subject. There's some drastic rule changes going down in baseball, and I'm curious what your response is. And,
well, let me talk about that for a second. Why there are drastic rules in baseball, and what is bringing this all about? The problem baseball has, as does football, as does basketball, as does hockey, is that the average baseball fan who goes to a baseball game, the average age of a baseball fan is 55 years old. I mean, if you think about that, I mean, we have of a certain age, people who really, really love baseball, who are dedicated baseball fans, but they're not 20, they're not 30, they're barely even 40. Most of them are 55, 65, and 75 years old.
Yeah, they've raised their families, so they're not even influencing their kids anymore.
Well, I mean, let me tell you about their kids. I mean, the problem is with the computer age, with these computer games, and I'm supposed to tell you the names of these games, but usually they have the word war in them.
Right.
Is that kids now spend so much more time playing these games that they will, for instance, 25,000 of them go to Madison Square Garden to watch one of the star game players play the game so that they can learn how to play the game better. Some of these game players are making $1 million. That's how popular it is. And the funny thing is that you and I have no idea who they are. We have no connection to any of them. But they are a huge, I mean, we're talking millions and millions of kids who are playing these games.
I know the Madden game that has a big...
I'm not talking about the Madden game. I'm talking about games that have nothing to do with baseball, nothing to do with sports. These are games that are competing. Mostly, I think that they're science fiction games where you go into the future and, prevent the world from coming to an, that sort of thing. Or where you're fighting, you're fighting in a war and you've got a gun and you're trying not to get killed. And you do that by, pushing buttons on your console as you play against other people. That's what the kids are playing right now. One of the kids, I teach a course at USF St. Petersburg, University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, in Sports in America. And he, opened up the website to me to show me what it was all about, and I was just stunned. I mean, I had no idea. And millions of kids who are college kids, high school kids, kids in their 20s are playing these games. And so
that's what sports is competing with nowadays.
Yes. And so the problem baseball has, the second problem baseball has is that as a result of the fact that these pitchers are now throwing 95 miles an hour, and as a result of all the sabermetrics where we have, so much information about each pitcher against each hitter, that there are now games where managers are using 6 and 7 and 8 pitchers in a ball game. And if both teams are doing it, the game's going to take, 4 hours and 15 minutes. And for people who are in their 20s and people in their 30s, they're just, it's not what they're interested in spending their time doing. And so baseball has decided in its infinite wisdom, though I think they're probably racing against the tide, that they would do things to try to shorten the games. And I think when we talk about some of these rule changes, you'll see what it is that they're actually trying to do.
Okay, let's start with the rule that a manager can bring in a pitcher, but said pitcher has to either finish out the inning or pitch to 3 batters.
Okay. I mean, this is a situation now where, obviously you've got managers who want to win every single game, and they're now so the managers are keeping 13 pitchers on a roster. I think they've just now made the roster 26 players, so they can add a 14th pitcher if they want to. And so if you've got a situation where the lineup coming up in the ninth inning is lefty, righty, lefty, the manager very conceivably could bring in, the first pitcher, a left-handed pitcher to pitch to the lefty, take him out, bring in the right-handed pitcher to pitch to the righty, get him out, take him out, bring in another lefty to face the lefty to end the game. So
time-consuming.
Oh my goodness! I mean, each pitcher's got to walk in from the bullpen. Each pitcher's going to take 7 or 8 warm-up pitches, and relief pitchers take all the time in the world anyway. I can't tell you how many times I was sitting at Tropicana Field screaming at our pitchers and their pitchers, for crying out loud, will you throw the ball? Looking in, the catcher comes out. I don't know whether it is
that kind of a pitcher a plotter.
Without a doubt. I mean, and this is a guy maybe pitching to one batter. So baseball wants to have fewer pitchers in a game. And so one way to have fewer pitchers in a game is to make a pitcher you bring in have to face 3 batters.
Right.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. If I were the manager, I wouldn't like it because, if it's lefty, righty, lefty, I want to bring in a lefty, then a righty, then a lefty. That would be my greatest chance of getting everybody out. But, remember, back in the 1950s, which was a few years ago, Robin Roberts in one season pitched something like, pitched 35 games and pitched 27 complete games, something like that.
Right. Spahn and those guys would just, they'd feel that if they didn't complete the game, it was a failure, as opposed to the other way around.
Oh, that's exactly right.
For that quality start, which isn't all that quality by bare definition. If a guy pitches X number of innings and has a 4.5 ERA for a quality start, we don't think of that as quality. That's sort of ERA. So they've cheapened it.
They've changed it. Nobody's cheapened anything. It's just all changed. I mean, we've got a situation here in Tampa Bay where we have 3 really fine starters, but obviously you should have 5 of them. And so what they're doing for 2 of the games is they're going to pitch one of our star relievers in the first 2 innings, and then they're going to take a long guy. We have a fella Yarborough. Yarborough last year, I believe he won 15 games last year, and I don't think he started a single game. He was sort of the long guy after the opener, and won 15 games. I mean, it's just different. The people down in the basement have figured out ways to win ball games, and they're very brilliant about it. It's just not the way baseball was played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's different.
Okay. Let's hit on another rule.
All right.
You pick one. You pick it.
No, you pick one. You pick
the
rules.
I want to ask you about the impending negotiation between the Player Association and the owners to eliminate the DH, to bring the DH to the National League.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think so. It's been this way a long time. I don't know. I'm an American League guy, so I like the DH. The DH gives star hitters who can't field anymore, who can't run anymore, the opportunity to hit.
But
Edgar
on
Martinez.
the other hand, you must say that the tenet of the game was you got a glove and you got a bat. You got to use both of them.
Well, but that's in the National League. It's not in the American League. The American League is such that the Edgar Martinezes of this world get to play for 5 or 6 or 7 more years so people can watch their hitting, their outstanding ability to hit. And, It does. That didn't bother me when they did it. Doesn't bother me now. I'll tell you what does bother me is that the pitchers hit about 110, and they're wasting our time. So I would certainly much rather see the DH in the National League. I just don't think they're going to do it. The rule.
Part of that is that they get no minor league instruction in hitting. In every league except the National League, there's the DH. So basically, whereas there were the Bob Turleys and Don.
Yeah, Bob Turley was the exception. Most of those pitchers couldn't hit for beans. Almost none of them could. And you could name 2 or 3 who could, but.
But remember that expression, help yourself, that kind of thing, where it was an advantage. It was part of the strategy. And when to take the player out, when to take the pitcher out, is the relief pitcher you're going to bring in? Are you know?
Well, you're a National League guy, and so you're happy with all of that stuff. And I understand that. That's perfectly fine. And I'm an American League guy, and I want to see.
At this point, I've accepted the fact that I think eventually the National League is going to adopt the rule. I've accepted it. What I would have a hell of a time accepting is that if they moved the mound back, for instance.
Yeah. Apparently they're talking about doing that in some independent league somewhere.
There's an independent league, the Atlanta League.
Atlantic League, yeah.
I'm sorry, not Atlanta, but the Atlantic League.
Atlantic League, yeah.
Right.
No, that upsets the hell out of me. It does.
Okay.
But I'll tell you something, the thing that we're seeing right now, and maybe it's what they're trying to do to see if they could do something about it, is that the pitchers right now are throwing so hard that 95 miles an hour has become the standard. And so you're seeing all of these players who are over 30 years old are not getting contracts. How many of them are not getting contracts right now because they're over 30 years old?
I could think of 2 or 3. Gio Gonzalez hasn't signed.
There are probably 15 of them. Some of them are as good as Gio, and some of them are not. But, these people are going to end up having to sign 1-year deals because no owners want to give a 32-year-old a 5-year contract. The fear being that when they're 35, 36, and 37, they're over the hill and can't play anymore. I mean, look at the Baltimore Orioles. What they paid for their first baseman, for crying out loud. Chris Davis. Chris Davis is getting something like $15 million a year, and last year he had 180. I mean, he was pathetic last year, and he's 30-something years old, and the suspicion is he's over the hill. And baseball general managers don't want to pay $15 million anymore for guys who hit 180. And that's what you're afraid of.
Who strike out more than they get a hit. Whereas DiMaggio almost got as many home runs as strikeouts in his freaking career, let alone 1 year.
Well, DiMaggio was amazing, yes.
Yeah.
No, DiMaggio was amazing. But the fabulous California Angels first baseman, Pujols, for instance. I mean, they gave him, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's not Pujols anymore and hasn't been. The general managers look at these guys and go, he's not worth $15 million a year. He's barely worth $5 million a year. And that's the problem these older players have because these pitchers have just become so good. I went to a couple of the spring training games. I went to the Boston Red Sox play the Detroit Tigers in Lakeland at Joker Marchand Stadium. Every single pitcher out there was hitting 95 miles an hour. Every single one of them, including guys you've never heard of.
They have the radar. They have it on the scoreboard in spring training?
Yes. Yes, they do.
Wow.
And even if they didn't, it wouldn't matter because you can see it. You could just see it.
I can't see how that could help the training part of it. Like if you're trying to reach those numbers this early in the season or in the experience.
That's got nothing to do with reaching these numbers. This is what these guys do. This is who they are. They're not working their way to go from 91 to 95. They're starting at 95, and this is what they do. I mean, it's quite amazing, actually.
Well, could that be one of the reasons for the injuries? People trying to get out of their
for the pitching injuries, by all means. I mean, that's another reason why teams are reluctant to give pitchers long-term contracts. The fear being is you give a guy a 5-year contract for $120 million, and in his third game he blows out his arm.
Right.
I would not want to be a general manager right now.
It wasn't his arm, but Harper was hit in the first exhibition.
Well, Harper got hit with a pitch in his toe. I mean, it's just these things happen.
Yeah. Turns out the X-rays were negative, and he's going to be back.
Well, that's good. That's good. But that would have been, that's when somebody pays $300 million for a player, they have to know when they're signing them, they better have every toe and every finger crossed, and hope that nothing terrible happens to them.
Yeah. The big story in the game that you saw was this generation's overachiever trying to hang on for one more year, and that's Dustin Pedroia. And got to give him hats off.
He's not going to play. He's not going to play. He's going to be sort of an assistant coach. They've got players. They got young kids. He'll make the team. He'll make the roster. But he's going to be, a fill-in guy. He's not going to play all that much.
Okay.
I mean, it's like Tulowitzki, who signed with the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees signed Tulowitzki because their fabulous shortstop has an injury. Gregorius, and he's going to be out for most of this season. And so hopefully Tulowitzki will fill in at shortstop. If he doesn't, Golenbock Torres will move over to short and play over there if he doesn't. But the Yankees are betting that Tulowitzki for one season will have a decent season. That's a real possibility because, for a little while with Colorado, Tulowitzki was as good a shortstop as there was.
Oh, with tremendous range.
He was tremendous.
Yeah.
Just tremendous.
Power.
I'll tell you something. I was at that Boston-Detroit game watching these guys play. The infielders making, fabulous plays and very strong throws. It's just thrilling to watch these guys play baseball.
Their athleticism has improved drastically since
Brooks Robinson played, 30 years ago. I mean, everybody plays like Brooks Robinson now. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch them play. The talent on these baseball teams is marvelous.
And you mentioned Brooks Robinson, the third baseman. The two guys that play the best third base in the majors, Arriato with Colorado and Chapman with the A's. They are both magicians.
Yep.
They happen to come out of the same high school.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, no,
they're amazing cool.
And there are other guys almost as good as they are. I saw the Red Sox, the kid Red Sox third baseman make a couple of backhand plays. It's just fabulous.
This is how Chapman will impress you, and I'm sure Arriato is the same way.
Oh, Chapman was on my rotisserie league, my team last year, so I know Chapman.
Mine too. Have you formed your rotisserie league?
No, we have our draft on the 1st of April.
Okay. Is that you're going to
New York? In New York.
Go up to New York.
Yep. In New York.
Beautiful. And that's a tradition. You have
the American Dreams League is the second oldest rotisserie league in the game. The founders founded it in 1983, and in the National League it was a National League team, and then American Dreams League was the second league in 1984. So we have been going to New York and drafting players since 1984. So that's 26 plus 19? 45 years? 45 years. 45 years we've been doing this. It's hard to imagine.
I think 35, but
even better. I like 35 better.
Yes.
Good. Yeah. All right.
It's a
Good.
better number. Do you get to keep? You have keepers in your league.
Yes, we can keep a guy for 2 years.
Okay. Is there anyone that you're deciding whether or not to keep, or thinking about making a decision? Should I or shouldn't I?
Well, last year I had Craig Kimbrell, who right now is a free agent, and if I wanted to, even though he's not, if he's not on a team on April 1st, under our rules, for $10, if I wanted to take a stab at him, I could. Of course, if he ends up in the National League, I've lost my $10 and lost my closer. So, I mean, that's the one decision. I've got to decide whether Kimbrell's going to stay in the American League or not. So we'll see about that. I had Sale last year. Sale faded on me the last 3 weeks. Cost me third place. I ended up fifth. But Sale last year was $31. I had him for 2 years. This year he's what's known as a topper. So I'm going to use one of my choices on Sale as a topper so that, you know, when the bidding goes up, if I want to, I can add $1 more and keep him. So those are the two decisions I have to make.
All righty. We're going to keep it short tonight. We have a documentary coming up on CNN on Tricky Dick Nixon.
Oh, boy.
That starts at the top of the hour. And that should be interesting because they've been making the correlation between his demise and our current presidents.
Yep.
So,
well, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. Absolutely.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. And,
you're welcome. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to the beginning of the baseball season, which is always a wonderful thing.
Best time of the year.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Well,
have
Peter,
a wonderful week. Take care.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. The show is Golenbock University. The station is the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Adios, everybody. Thanks for listening. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.